Hello, my YouTube audience, and welcome back to Crime Whispers Now. I know a lot of you use these stories to drift off to sleep, so before your eyes get heavy, I thought it would be fun if everyone could leave a comment, letting me know where in the world you're listening from, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these cases. Alright, let's get comfortable, relax, and begin. In the southeastern part of South Korea lies the city of Daegu, surrounded by mountains. Its western district is home to Warong Mountain. Standing about 983 feet tall, this peaceful mountain would soon become the center of one of the most shocking cases in South Korean history, a case later known as the Frog Boys disappearance. Let's go back to March 26, 1991. It was a Tuesday, but no ordinary one. It was a national holiday due to parliamentary elections for children. That meant no school, a perfect chance to play at 8:20 a.m. 6 boys gathered near Jo Ho-yeon's house. Their names were Kim Jong-sik, age 9, Park Chan-in 10, Kim Young-gyu, 11, Jo Ho-yeon, 12, Woo Chil-won, 13, and Kim Tae-rong, age 9. All were classmates at Seongseo Elementary, a school resting at the base of Warong Mountain. At first, they played near the house, but a tenant soon came out, irritated by the noise, and told them to move elsewhere. The boys huddled together, deciding where to go next. Someone suggested Warong Mountain, a popular spot for finding fire salamander eggs. Excited by the idea, they agreed. Each child rushed home for supplies, empty containers, sticks, and snacks. Only one of them, Kim Tae-rong, told his parents his plan, but his parents thought the mountain was too far and forbade him from joining. Reluctantly, he stayed behind, unknowingly escaping the fate that awaited his friends. The other 5 boys made their way toward the mountain, laughing and joking along the trail. Hours passed. By noon, the parents still weren't concerned. They assumed the boys were simply lost in play. But as darkness fell, unease grew. At 6:30 p.m., Kim Young-gu's mother felt a sudden dread. She stopped her chores, stepped outside, and noticed the streets were eerily quiet. Her son was nowhere to be found. Alarmed, she rushed to the homes of his friends. There, she learned a chilling truth. None of the 5 boys had returned. The families grabbed flashlights and rushed to the mountain, calling out their children's names, but no voices answered. At 7:50 p.m., they reported the disappearance to police. Yet, because of the elections and the fact less than 24 hours had passed, authorities dismissed the urgency. They assured the families the boys would surely come home, but the parents knew something was terribly wrong. Through the night, they and kind neighbors combed the slopes of Warong Mountain in the pouring rain. By 3 a.m., drenched and exhausted, they were forced to stop. The following day, a massive search began. Over 300 people, including police and military personnel, swept the area. Helicopters scanned the forest from above, but still, no trace of the children. Witness testimonies trickled in. Jo Ho-yeon's older brother recalled seeing the group at the mountain base around 9 a.m. His younger brother had cheerfully told him they were hunting for salamander eggs. A woman claimed she saw the boys at 9:30 a.m. carrying sticks and boxes, debating whether they'd be back in time for lunch. And then came a chilling account. A student named Han Sung, also searching the mountain that morning, reported hearing something strange around 11:30 a.m. Near the cemetery area. He suddenly heard a piercing scream echo through the forest. 10 seconds later, another scream followed on, then silence. The sound that echoed across Warong Mountain that morning was terrifying, sharp and panicked. Nothing like the playful shouts of children. The witness, Hen, froze in fear. He didn't dare go closer to find out where the screams had come from. The boys' parents would later believe those screams could have been desperate cries for help, but when they told the police, the authorities brushed it aside. Another villager had claimed to see the boys at the base of the mountain around noon, so investigators suggested the sounds Hen heard might have been nothing more than birds or wild animals. Other reports only muddied the picture further. A 42-year-old villager swore he saw 5 boys near a pond around 4:30 that afternoon, but every account was based on fragile memory, inconsistent, uncertain, and unreliable. These contradictions began to shape the police's theory at first. Investigators suggested the boys might have run away after some argument at home. Maybe they'd gotten lost in the hills, but the parents flatly rejected this idea. Their children were happy, loved, and had no reason to run away. Besides, the youngest, Kim Jong-sik, was just 9 years old, and the oldest, Woo Chil-won, only 13. Could such young children truly vanish together by choice? The investigation then turned toward the possibility of foul play. Maybe someone the families knew, an acquaintance, but, after extensive questioning, police concluded all 5 families were well respected, with no conflicts or grudges that could explain such a crime. 3 days later, on March 29th, something chilling happened. The father and uncle of 9-year-old Kim Jong-sik received a phone call. The voice on the other end belonged to a man who sounded about 30. He claimed he had kidnapped the boys and demanded a ransom of 4 million won, about $2,800 in today's money. Kim's father scraped together the cash and rushed to the meeting point on Warong Mountain. He waited for hours in the cold darkness, but no one ever appeared. The caller never contacted the family again. Meanwhile, guilt began to weigh heavily on the young tenant who had told the boys to leave that morning. He couldn't shake the thought, if he hadn't sent them away, maybe none of this would have happened. Public anger soon turned toward the police. People accused them of moving too slowly, wasting precious time. At first, news of the disappearance spread only through the village, but when the story reached the national press, it exploded early. Reports mistakenly said the children had gone to catch frogs, and so the media gave them a name that would stick forever: the Frog Boys. By April 1st, just 6 days after the disappearance, the families had printed 50,000 flyers. They were handed out at train stations, bus stops, and public squares. A reward of 2 million won was offered for any information. The case had grown so serious that even South Korea's president, Roh Tae-woo, took notice. He ordered authorities to mobilize every available resource soon. Hundreds of police and soldiers were scouring the mountain, leaving no inch unchecked. A nearby reservoir, where a child had once drowned, it was completely drained. But again, nothing was found. Then came another cruel twist. The family's phone numbers leaked to the public soon. The phones wouldn't stop ringing. Police even tapped the lines, hoping for a real lead, but the vast majority of calls were sick pranks, children's voices laughing, sudden hang-ups, or anonymous tips that led nowhere. One man even called, in 1992, claiming the boys' bodies were buried in a basement of a building near their homes. Police rushed to investigate. The building was searched top to bottom. Nothing. Weeks passed, then months. Reporters clashed with frustrated villagers. Rumors and false leads piled up. By November 1992, the police had received almost 1,000 tips, and nearly every single one was worthless. The case that had once gripped the nation was slipping into silence, leaving 5 families broken, and 5 boys still missing. Rumors in the shadows. It had been over a year since the disappearance of the 5 boys from Daegu's Warong Mountain. The massive search had yielded nothing. No clothing, no bones, no trace. The nation was restless. And with silence came something far more dangerous. Speculation. In 1992, a film titled Comeback, Frog Boys was released. Inspired by the tragedy, what should have been a respectful tribute reopened wounds and sent shockwaves across South Korea. The public, already furious with the deadlocked investigation, now demanded answers more than ever. When answers didn't come, rumors filled the void, and the rumors were wild. Some claimed the boys had been kidnapped by North Korean spies, smuggled across the border to be trained as agents, or silenced for witnessing something forbidden. Others whispered that they had been abducted by patients suffering from Hansen's disease, leprosy, and used in secret medical treatment. 7 Though these theories were the police chased them. Every news story, no matter how outlandish, meant interviews, searches, and wasted resources. And then the whispers grew darker. Some locals insisted the boys weren't human at all, that they had been taken by aliens, that their disappearance was proof of something beyond our world. South Korea, in the early 1990s, was a nation in transition. It was modernizing rapidly, balancing technology and tradition, but with rapid change came fear, and when fear met tragedy, superstition thrived over the course of the long investigation. Nearly 320,000 people, from soldiers and police to ordinary villagers, had joined the search, but all their efforts ended the same way. Empty-handed. Chapter 2. Desperate measures. By 1995, 4 years after the disappearance, investigators tried a new approach using computer technology. They created age-progressed portraits of the boys, what they might look like if they were still alive. These faces were printed on over 2 million flyers and distributed across the nation. The results? Disappointing. The effort sparked waves of false reports. People swore they had seen the boys in distant towns, at bus stations, or wandering rural markets, but every lead ended in disappointment. Growing desperate, the police even turned. 2 shamans. Rituals were performed, offerings made, and spirit consultations carried out in hopes of finding the boys. None of it worked. Meanwhile, the parents, once pillars of strength, were being crushed under the weight of years without answers, with no choice but to survive. They returned to their jobs, burdened by grief, but forced to earn a living. The case, once the beating heart of national conversation, slowly faded into background noise for the families. However, the silence was deafening. Chapter 3. A cruel accusation. Then, in January 1996, 5 years after the boys vanished, the case took a shocking turn. Professor Kim Kwang-jun, a criminal psychology expert from KIST, one of South Korea's most prestigious universities, made a bold and devastating claim. He alleged that the Frog Boys had been murdered, not by strangers, not by kidnappers, but by one of their own. Father. Specifically, he pointed to Kim Kailu, the father of 9-year-old Kim Jong-sik. According to the professor, the father had killed all 5 boys and buried their bodies beneath his home. The accusation was explosive. KIST was a world-class institution, ranked among the top in the country for the public. The professor's credentials gave his words weight. If he said it, people thought there must be truth. But the families were horrified. Kim Kailu, already devastated by the loss of his son, now found himself painted as a murderer. Outraged and heartbroken, he protested his innocence, yet the police, pressured by the professor's standing. Listen. Chapter 4. The dig. To prove himself innocent, Kim Kailu made a painful choice. He allowed police to dig up his own home. In January 1996, officers arrived. With shovels and equipment, neighbors gathered in the streets. Curiosity and suspicion burning in their eyes, reporters swarmed the scene, cameras flashing, microphones ready. The professor had pointed out areas where he believed the bodies would be found: beneath the bathroom, the storage rooms, the yard. For an hour and 40 minutes, police tore through walls and floors. They demolished sections of the house. Dust filled the air. Neighbors whispered, wondering if they were about to see bones rise from the earth. And then nothing, not a single shred of evidence. No bones, no clothing, nothing but rubble and shame. Standing in the ruins of his own home, Kim Kailu broke down in tears. His voice cracked as he cried out, "Losing my child has caused me unimaginable pain. I've struggled every single day to survive, and now to be accused of burying my own son in my house. This is absurd." The scene shocked the nation. Chapter 5. The fallout. The professor faced immediate backlash. His baseless claim had destroyed an innocent man's life. KIST dismissed him, and prosecutors charged him with defamation, but the damage was done. Humiliated and broken, Kim Kailu never recovered. Once a healthy man, strong and athletic in his youth, he turned to alcohol to numb the pain. The years of grief, shame, and heavy drinking eventually consumed him. In October 2001, he died of liver cancer, never knowing the truth about his son's fate. Chapter 6. The Chestnut Hiker. And then, 11 years after the boys had vanished, The case finally cracked open on September 26, 2002. A 60-year-old man was hiking Warong Mountain, gathering chestnuts as he walked. He tapped the ground with his hiking stick, brushing aside dirt, rocks, and leaves midway up the mountain. Something caught his eye, a shred of clothing, tangled in the soil. Curious, he dug deeper. His stick struck something hard. He pushed away the earth, and froze. A skull stared back at him. He staggered back, heart pounding, before rushing down the mountain to alert police. What made this discovery even more haunting was that just one day earlier, another caller had reported seeing remains on the mountain. Police had dismissed it as yet another prank, but now, there was no denying it. Chapter 7. The discovery. When officers arrived, they found a shallow pit. In the dirt inside were 4 sets of skeletal remains. Stacked together, a large rock had been placed over the bones, as if to conceal them. About 150 meters away, a 5th set of remains lay along the bones. The size, the age, they matched the missing boys. 3 of the skulls bore small, round holes, as though pierced by a sharp object. The boys' clothing, oddly, was not on their bodies. Instead, it was tied together in knots, separated from the bones. Despite the decomposition, the families recognized the clothing instantly. These were the same shirts and jackets their children had worn on the day they disappeared. After more than 11 years of clinging to hope, the truth was undeniable. The Frog Boys were dead. Chapter 8. Theories and denial. Police announced their theory. The boys had gone too far up the mountain, lost their way, and as night fell, they panicked to stay together. They tied their jackets into a long rope. As temperatures dropped, they huddled for warmth. Exhaustion and exposure, investigators suggested, led to their deaths, but the families rejected this immediately. Their children knew the mountain well. They had played there countless times. Their homes were just at the base of Warong. The mountain wasn't tall, nor particularly dangerous. And what of the holes in their skulls? The separated, knotted clothing. The parents argued these details didn't fit an accident. They suggested foul play, that someone had struck their children, perhaps even murdered them, and then tried to conceal the bodies under dirt and stone. But the case, now over a decade old, had grown cold. Forensic evidence was limited, the bones weathered by time, and so, despite the horrifying discovery, the question remained unanswered. Chapter 9. A legacy of pain for the families. The discovery ended one nightmare, but began another hope, however faint, had kept them going with the truth revealed. There was no longer anything to hold on to. Only grief. The nation was outraged. Questions poured in. How could 5 children vanish so close to home? How could police search Warong Mountain hundreds of times and miss their shallow graves? Who placed the rock over their bodies? Who made the holes in their skulls? And most haunting of all, who silenced the Frog Boys? The case remains one of South Korea's darkest mysteries, and for the parents who lost everything, justice never came from the houses at the foot of the mountain. The site where the boys' bodies were eventually discovered was clearly visible. In fact, it was only about 18 miles from their homes, and just 1,640 feet from the nearest village, making it nearly impossible for them to have simply gotten lost at the site. Police recovered more than 10 bullet casings of various types, because Warong Mountain was close to a firing range used by the 50th Infantry Brigade of the 2nd Division. Suspicions arose that the boys may have been accidentally struck by stray bullets, but this theory was quickly dismissed. It was statistically impossible for 5 children to be hit simultaneously by stray gunfire, even if someone had been illegally firing weapons nearby. The absence of anyone hearing gunshots further weakened the idea. Forensic analysis also ruled out gunshot wounds. The indentations on the skulls of the victims did not match bullet injuries, suggesting the spent shells found at the scene were likely objects the boys had picked up while playing. The police investigation itself drew widespread public criticism. Their excavation was seen as careless. Officers dug with pickaxes, hastily placed the remains into bags, and examined only one set of bones before concluding the boys had died of hypothermia After getting lost, the media condemned this as unprofessional and disrespectful. Forensic team from Gangbuk National University later carried out a more thorough examination. Their findings revealed no visible injuries on the bones of Park Chan-in and Jo Ho-jian, making their cause of death indeterminable. The other three victims, Woo Chi-won, Kim Jong-sik, and Kim Young-gu, had severe cranial injuries, including fractures and puncture wounds. Kim Jong-sik's left arm was broken, while Woo, the oldest, had the most damage. With as many as 25 separate wounds, investigators concluded the boys had been murdered, most likely on the very day they disappeared. The injuries matched a specific tool, a welding hammer with one pointed and one flat end, used to scrape slag, though not commonly carried around. It is essential in welding work. This clue suggested premeditation. Someone had brought the weapon intentionally. Based on evidence, police reconstructed the sequence of events. The boys had gone to Warong Mountain to search for fire salamander eggs. When they were ambushed, Woo resisted and sustained the worst injuries. Kim Jong-sik tried to flee, but was struck fatally as he raised his arm in defense. Kim Young-gu also attempted escape, but was caught. His torn shirt and buttons revealed the struggle before he was killed. The last two victims, Park Chan-in and Jo Ho-jian, appeared to have been strangled with makeshift restraints fashioned from their own clothing. Their lack of skeletal injuries supports this conclusion. Afterward, the attacker buried all 5 bodies in a shallow pit, covering them with a heavy rock, perhaps to mark the spot or ensure they could not be seen. This reconstruction suggested both planning and impulse. The weapon pointed to forethought, but the choice of victims seemed random. Killing 5 children at once was reckless and high risk, making it unlikely they had been specifically targeted. The case fueled public debate. Why were the boys' hair and teeth materials that decompose slowly missing from the site? Why were the knots on the makeshift restraints unusual, unlike those used in daily life? And most importantly, why had earlier searches failed to find the remains, despite the site being so close to their homes? Some speculated that erosion, rain, and landslides had slowly exposed the bodies after being buried too deeply. Others theorized the remains were moved there later. Once initial police and military searches were over near the site, investigators also discovered an artificial cave with a hidden, crawl-sized entrance. Inside were objects dating back to around the year 2000, nearly a decade after the murders, suggesting someone lived there long after the crime. In March 2006, exactly 15 years after the tragedy, the statute of limitations expired, meaning the perpetrator could no longer face criminal charges that same year. Rumors spread of a family living near Warong Mountain whose son, said to have an intellectual disability, had accidentally let their dog loose. According to the rumor, the dog attacked the boys, and in a desperate attempt to cover it up, the family killed them, though widely circulated. The story was never confirmed by evidence. The case continued to haunt South Korea. In 2011, the film The Children, based on the Frog Boys case, was released, reigniting national debate and sorrow over one of the country's darkest unsolved mysteries. By 2015, police officially closed the Frog Boys investigation. Public debate slowly faded in, till 2021, when a single social media comment reignited interest. The commenter suggested the culprit might have been a teacher at the boys' school. Their reasoning: first, a teacher would know the mountain's geography. Second, in the early 90s, corporal punishment was common, giving teachers authority over students. Some journalists pursued the claim, but their investigation proved it baseless. Then, in 2022, another theory emerged online. The murder weapon might have been a metal caliper, used by delinquent high school students. Reports confirmed that in schools near Mount Warong, students had sometimes fought with calipers, and groups of teens were known to gather there to smoke and drink. This raised the chilling possibility that the Frog Boys were attacked by students, but critics pushed back to cause the kind of injuries found on the victims. The weapon would have needed to be at least 12 inches long, bulky, hard to conceal, and impossible to carry unnoticed. For that reason, Experts considered this theory unlikely. The Frog Boy's disappearance remains one of South Korea's most haunting mysteries, exposing deep flaws in child protection and terrifying parents across the nation. Alongside the Hwasong serial murders and the kidnapping of Lee Hyun-ho, it is remembered as one of Korea's 3 most shocking cases. While the Hwasong killings were solved after 33 years, the Frog Boy's mystery remains unsolved even today. Many hope modern forensic science will one day uncover the truth story too. Taiwan's first case of cannibalism. 2003 Taikang City, Taiwan. In December 10th, a man named Kenji rushed into the Longjing District Police Station, frantic. His sister, Shen Jianqi, a 27-year-old insurance agent, had vanished just 3 nights earlier. On December 7th, she told him over the phone that she was heading to meet a client near Tunghai University. The client was a motorcycle repair shop owner, Chen Jinhee, who promised to refer new customers. Excited, Jianqi declined her brother's offer to accompany her, assuring him everything was fine. Still uneasy, Kenji cycled toward the shop, intending to wait outside until she finished, but she insisted he go home and rest, promising to return early. Reluctantly, he agreed that night. Her parents assumed she was at Kenji's home, while Kenji believed she had gone back to her parents. No one realized she hadn't returned at Alon the morning of December 9th. Kenji's phone rang. It was his sister's manager at Cathay Life Insurance. Jianqi hadn't shown up for work in 2 days. Panic set in. Kenji told police that his sister was well-liked, gentle, cheerful, and graceful, though not traditionally beautiful. She had a magnetic presence. She kept her private life simple, lived with her parents despite having a long-term boyfriend, and avoided drama. Desperate for answers, Kenji rushed to the motorcycle repair shop. The 3-story building smelled of motor oil and echoed with the clang of tools on the ground floor. He found the owner Jinjin working on a bike. When asked about Jianqi, Chen casually replied that she had stopped by on December 7th, but he was busy. So they exchanged only a few words and agreed to meet another time. Kenji wasn't convinced by Chun's casual tone. His sister would never disappear without contacting family, and the story felt off when Kenji pressed further. Chun stuck to his claim they had only spoken briefly, and she had left on her own, but something about Chun's demeanor unsettled him. The way Chun avoided eye contact, his clipped responses, and the faint odor of alcohol lingering on his breath all raised alarms in Kenji's mind. By now, police were already treating the case as suspicious. Investigators interviewed neighbors around the shop, who confirmed that, on the night of December 7th, they had seen Jianqi enter Chun's workshop, but hadn't seen her leave. Some even recalled hearing unusual noises, loud thuds, and the sound of heavy objects being dragged. Late into the night, the deeper investigators dug. The darker Chen's background became, though known publicly as a friendly mechanic, Chen was also infamous in private circles for his temper, gambling debts, an obsession with martial arts. Former acquaintances whispered about his violent streak, while others hinted at disturbing rumors of past assaults that had gone unpunished. With mounting suspicion, police returned to Chen's shop. This time, their search was thorough. What they found behind a locked door on the upper floor horrified even seasoned officers. Charred remains, bloodstains poorly wiped away, and cooking utensils coated in residues that defied belief. Forensic analysis later confirmed what investigators feared. Parts of Jean Kai's body had been mutilated, and cooked. Taiwan was plunged into collective shock. The crime wasn't just a brutal murder. It crossed into the unthinkable. Cannibalism was swiftly arrested. During interrogation, he oscillated between denial, incoherent ramblings, and chillingly calm admissions. At one point, he confessed that he had lured Jean under the pretense of business, killed her in a fit of rage, and then, in a grotesque twist, attempted to consume parts of her body. The trial gripped the nation. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse demanding justice, and the media dissected every grisly detail. Psychologists debated whether Chen was driven by desperation, sadism, or sheer madness. Ultimately, the court sentenced him to death, declaring his crimes beyond redemption for Jean's family. However, no punishment could erase the nightmare her brother Kenji, who had tried so hard to protect her, was left with a grief that would never fade. The case became known as Taiwan's first documented incident of cannibalism, a story that blurred the line between crime and horror even today. It remains a reminder that sometimes the darkest monsters are not legends or folklore, they are humans still unconvinced. Kenji followed his instincts and insisted on searching both the upper and lower floors of the repair shop, but before he could step inside, Chen blocked his path. He hurled insults at Kenji, shoved him back, and slammed the heavy metal security gate shut during his later police interview. Kenji explained why his suspicions only grew stronger that night. He knew his sister's habits better than anyone. She had never stayed away from home without warning, nor vanished without informing family to him. There was no doubt Chen had something to do with her disappearance the next morning. The entire Shu family returned to the shop, demanding to search the premises. Surprisingly, Chen's demeanor had changed drastically. The hostility from the night before was gone now. He greeted them with forced politeness, as though eager to clear himself of suspicion room by room. The family scoured all 3 floors of the repair shop. They left no corner unchecked, clinging to a shred of hope, but there was nothing. No clothing, no belongings, not even a strand of Jinji's hair shattered. The family walked straight to the police station to file a formal report. Suspicion alone wasn't enough for criminal charges, but the name Chen Jinho immediately rang a bell for Chief Tang Yu Chang, head of the Criminal Investigation Division. This wasn't the first time Chen's name had surfaced. Back in March 1991, a Tanghai University student named Xu Ruzhen had vanished after visiting the same motorcycle repair shop. She'd been working part-time as an insurance agent and had arranged to meet Chen to discuss a policy. She was never seen again. Chen was the prime suspect at the time. He claimed he had gone to visit his pregnant wife, and when he returned, Shu was already gone, but investigators found troubling gaps in his timeline. Over 90 minutes of unaccounted activity. Still, with no physical evidence, the case went cold now. 12 years later, another young woman, also an insurance agent, had vanished from the very same location. The coincidence was impossible to ignore for Chief Thames. The memory of the 1991 case had never faded. The image of Shu's motorcycle parked outside the shop while its owner simply disappeared haunted him for over a decade. Though Chen had been questioned 3 times and failed every polygraph test, there had never been enough evidence to charge him this time. Temps was determined not to let the opportunity slip away. Investigators dug deeper into Chen's past. Born into poverty as one of 13 siblings, Chen had grown up in a family of day laborers struggling in school. He dropped out after 8th grade. Nearly illiterate, unable to even read his own ID card, he eventually apprenticed as a motorcycle repairman, and in his mid-20s, saved enough to open a shop of his own, despite his lack of education. Chen developed a reputation as a skilled mechanic, earning the trust of his neighbors, but behind this facade of a hard-working tradesman lurked a far darker side. When questioned about Jinji's disappearance, Chen denied everything. Yet technology had advanced since the 1990s, and police wasted no time gathering surveillance footage. CCTV from a nearby convenience store showed Jinji entering the motorcycle shop shortly after 8 p.m. that night. Crucially, there was no footage of her ever leaving. Confronted with this evidence, Chen remained disturbingly calm. His answers were too smooth, too rehearsedly polished for someone with limited education. Detectives suspected he had practiced lies in advance. With growing doubts, police secured a warrant to search the shop, but before they could move in, Chen slipped away. When officers arrived at the 3-story building, security gates were locked tight, and no one responded to their pounding. Fearing Chen had fled, they brought in police dogs and prepared to search the premises, knowing this might be their last chance to uncover the truth. Investigators managed to obtain a spare key from Chen's wife and entered the repair shop. The first floor was a chaotic. Miss Anne, unfinished motorcycle repair job, tools scattered everywhere, making it nearly impossible to separate potential evidence from junk on the second floor. The living area was coated in dust and grime, clearly abandoned, but one detail stood out. In the otherwise filthy bathroom, the bathtub gleamed unnaturally clean, as if it had been scrubbed only recently before investigators could examine further. The police dog suddenly barked furiously, pulling officers upstairs on the third floor. The dog stopped before a cylindrical, stainless steel water tank. Its barking frantic, a foul stench soon seeped from the tank, though such water tanks were common in Taiwanese homes. This one looked abandoned, covered in thick grime. When officers pried open the lid, the odor of decay was overwhelming. They discovered 2 heavy black plastic bags. The contents shocked even veteran officers. A severed head, dismembered limbs, chunks of flesh, bones stripped bare, and blood-soaked internal organs. The scene was nightmarish. Police immediately sealed off the building nearby. They recovered a smashed Nokia phone from a trash bin in the bathroom. Luminol testing lit up countless glowing blue spots across the walls, and floor-clear traces of blood, proving it was the primary crime scene. When word reached Jing Kai's family, her parents and brother rushed to the shop, despite officers trying to stop them. They ran inside. Her father collapsed in grief upon recognizing what remained of his daughter's face. The search uncovered more disturbing finds. In a corner of Chen's room, investigators discovered a large snake coiled menacingly, along with pornographic videos and sex toys revealing Chen's dark and deviant interests. But Chen himself had vanished. His wife told police he was 39, with 3 sons. Once respected as a skilled motorcycle mechanic, his life unraveled after his wife left him. Unable to bear his bizarre obsessions, neighbors had long been wary of him, despite appearing introverted. Chen had a violent past. Frequently beaten as a child, he developed cruel habits, torturing small animals. Later, he filled his home with snakes, terrifying his family and neighbors. Women often reported him staring at them with predatory eyes from his doorway. Police theorized Chen wouldn't stray far from familiar places. They were right. He was soon found in his rural hometown, eerily calm, even while carrying a betel nut knife. Though confronted with overwhelming evidence, he denied everything, feigning outrage and insisting the real killer was still at large. But prosecutors knew the case needed more than circumstantial evidence. They scoured the repair shop's drainage pipes for weapons, finding nothing. Just when the investigation seemed stalled, a breakthrough came. The victim's phone, though unused, had made a strange call, using another SIM card. Tracing it, investigators discovered it belonged to a woman named Li, the girlfriend of Guang Deng, a 29-year-old apprentice at Chun's shop. When police tried to question him, they learned Guang had also disappeared after the murder. He instantly became a second prime suspect. Then, another tip arrived. Xiaoyin Chong, a local electronics shop owner, contacted police. Guang, he said, had recently brought in a laptop and phone, asking for the computer to be unlocked. Suspicious after hearing about Chen's alleged crime, Xiao secretly alerted police following their instructions. He stalled Guang. Half an hour later, Guang returned, saying he had changed his mind and instead wanted to sell the laptop. After some negotiation, he agreed to let it go for around Xiao's clever stalling tactics, even convincing Guang to sign a fake transfer of ownership for just $300. Bought enough time for police to arrive. Unlike Chun's unnerving.com, Guang's boyish face betrayed instant panic as he was taken into custody at the station. The mounting evidence shattered his composure. He eventually broke down, confessing his role in the crime. His testimony in turn pressured Chen, who was being questioned separately, to also acknowledge involvement. Together, their statements painted a horrifying picture. Guang, a school dropout whose life had spiraled into gambling and debt, had ended up apprenticing at Chen's repair shop. The nature of their business, motorcycle repairs often tied to insurance, allowed Chen to cultivate connections with insurance companies. Through this, he met the victim, Ms. Jinchi, for 2 years. Chen had referred clients to her, but after a major claim went wrong, one of his customers stormed into the shop, costing Chen multiple business opportunities. His resentment grew until, in December 2003, he plotted revenge. On the evening of December 7th, Chen phoned Jinchi, luring her to the shop. Under the pretense of signing a new insurance contract, she arrived around 9 p.m. Greeted by Chen and Guang, the shop seemed normal, music playing, friendly conversation over paperwork. No one could have imagined these would be her final moments. Suddenly, Chen pulled down the security gate and turned the volume up to maximum. Alarmed, Jinchi barely had time to react before Chen struck her in the lower back with a club. Guang, prepared with black gloves, looped a thick rope around her neck. She fought desperately, but the blaring music drowned out every sound. After 2 agonizing minutes of struggle, her body went limp. Attackers dragged her upstairs to the bathroom, where they committed unspeakable acts of assault afterwards. Chen turned coldly. Practicable disposal of the body, moving it outside, was too risky in the busy neighborhood, so they decided to destroy evidence inside the shop. They washed her body, mutilated her with a knife, and dismembered her into pieces. Guang even fried parts of the flesh and served them to Chen, who ate without expression. The remains were divided. Larger pieces were stuffed into black plastic bags and dumped in a rooftop water tank. Other body parts, clothing, and the utility knife were thrown into a septic tank behind the shop. When interrogated, both men told similar accounts of the sequence, but each blamed the other as the true mastermind. Guang insisted he only took part in the assault, and that Chen carried out the mutilation alone. Chen, on the other hand, claimed Guang orchestrated everything for money, denying any act of cannibalism. Police later recovered body parts, bones, clothing, insurance papers, and even the rope Guang discarded near the shop. DNA tests confirmed the rope contained only Jin Kai's profile. No trace of Chen or Guang supporting Guang's claim that he had worn gloves. The dispute over who was the mastermind and who carried out the dismemberment was settled through forensic evidence. Autopsy determined Jin Kai's time of death to be around 10 p.m. on December 7th. Experts concluded that the acts of dismemberment and disposal could not have been completed by one person in such a short time frame. This led investigators to believe that both Chen and Guang were actively involved in every stage of the crime. Throughout the investigation, their testimonies constantly shifted. Sometimes they confessed, other times they denied everything. Guang was eventually diagnosed by psychiatric experts with severe mental disorders, requiring treatment in a psychiatric ward. As for the cannibalism claims, Chen frequently altered his story by the time of trial. He strongly denied those accusations, though the media had already branded him as the cannibal monster during one chilling interrogation. Chen remarked, "Vegetarian meat and regular meat taste the same." Investigators immediately recalled the unsolved case of Su Ruin, a vegetarian student who vanished 12 years earlier. They suspected she might have suffered the same horrific fate, but tragically, no evidence was ever found to connect Chen to her disappearance. This left both her family and investigators in anguish. After years of legal proceedings, their stories kept shifting. Guang admitted to sexually assaulting Jin Qi, but denied the murder and cannibalism. Chen confessed to assault and cannibalism, but insisted he wasn't the killer. In the 2004 trial, prosecutors sought the death penalty for Chen and 20 years for Guang. The court instead sentenced both men to death in 2005. The appellate court upheld the ruling, and in 2007, the Tikong High Court finalized their sentences for premeditated murder despite protests from human rights groups. The executions were carried out on December 21, 2012. Guang died instantly from the first gunshot. Chen, who had volunteered to donate his organs, was first anesthetized and then executed with a shot to the brain. His organs were rushed to a local hospital for harvesting. However, due to ethical concerns, many viewed organ donation from death row inmates as a form of hidden torture. The Ministry of Justice later banned such practices. Chen became the last Taiwanese inmate allowed to donate organs after execution. To this day, the case continues to haunt Taiwan, especially the community around Tunghai University. It exposed not only the darkest sides of human nature, but also left a lasting lesson in vigilance. Story 3. Our next case takes us to Hong Kong. A family turned to a so-called grandmaster to change their fate. But this decision shattered their lives. A brilliant young woman, once considered blessed with talent, would later go missing for 16 years before resurfacing as a mother who took the life of her own child. What led her down such a tragic path? Le Feng Yi, born in 1972, was the eldest of 4 siblings. She had a younger sister and 2 younger brothers. Her father owned a transport business and several properties, and the family enjoyed wealth, complete with a driver and housekeeper. Yet Feng Yi was frail as a child, often ill, and her parents superstitiously believed she brought them misfortune. Despite this, she faced her reality with resilience. She studied at a government-funded Christian girls' school, excelling in English and academics. In Hong Kong's public graduation exams, a highly competitive test, she scored 28 out of 30, an extraordinary result compared to other top students like Gloria Thames, 21, and Ziliang, 24. Feng Yi's brilliance was matched by her kind and generous personality, making her popular among peers. But when she was 16, her family's life unraveled. Her mother discovered her father's affair, which had produced another child. He frequently stayed away from home, and though her mother desperately tried to save the marriage, nothing worked. One day, while at her usual salon, Feng Yi's mother noticed a small idol with a man's photo beside it, and another idol with the hairstylist's picture attached. Curious, she asked about it. The stylist explained it was the statue of Lun Guan, and the man was Grand Master, liner of the Guanyin Xunyang Temple. In 211, he was said to have mystical powers to bless people and change their destinies. The phrase "change fate" caught her mother's attention. Believing this was the only way to restore her family, she arranged a meeting with the Grand Master soon. She brought her 4 children to the temple, located in an industrial district. At first, she was doubtful, but the crowds of worshippers and thick incense smoke convinced her of its supposed power. After performing the Grand Master's ritual, Feng Yi's father unexpectedly returned home, and family harmony was briefly restored. From then on, the family became loyal followers, donating 50,000 Hong Kong dollars monthly as incense offerings to maintain control. Jenner crafted a clever deception. He ordered Feng Yi to tell her parents she had been accepted to study in Australia and needed $50,000 for tuition. Trusting their daughter's academic abilities, her parents agreed without hesitation, providing the equivalent of more than 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. Their only request was that she send letters home regularly. With this lie in place, Jinar moved Feng Yi into a ground-floor apartment at Kinhuan in Tuhanman, where she was to await the child's birth. His wife Lung Yungan, who doubled as his assistant at the temple, lived in the unit next door. Life 3 years older than Jinar, previously divorced, and mother to 2 sons, had lived with him since the mid-1980s. Together, they ran the Guanyin Xunyang Temple as registered traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. She was aware of Jinner's relationship with Feng Yi, but chose not to interfere. Still, Jinner kept strict watch. Feng Yi was not allowed outside alone, and was initially denied a cell phone. Only later, fearing an emergency might arise, did he reluctantly give her one for urgent use. Despite this, all communication with her family was forbidden. At times, Feng Yi longed to write or call her parents, but Jinner threatened her, harshly making it clear such contact was not allowed. The first letter Feng Yi managed to send was routed through Australia before it finally reached her family in 1994. By then, she was 22 years old and had just given birth. She hoped to marry Jean Sher, so her child would have legal status, but he immediately rejected the idea. At first, Feng Yi believed that after delivering this so-called divine child, she would be allowed to return to her parents, but the Grandmaster had no intention of releasing her. Instead, he confined her to the apartment providing her with only 6,000 Hong Kong dollars per month and permitting her to leave solely for essentials. His weekly visits were disguised as transfers of yang energy, though in truth, they were only to satisfy his own desires. In 1995, Feng Ji became pregnant again. By this time, her mental health had begun to falter, sleepless nights plagued her, and she relied on medication just to rest. Exploiting this vulnerability, Jin Shi placed her first child under the care of his lawful wife, Liang Yang Len, leaving Feng Ji increasingly isolated with only him in her world. In 1996, she gave birth to her second child, La Xiaoheng. The following year, she became pregnant once more, and soon after welcomed her third child, a daughter named Leah. This left her to care for two young children on her own, while her firstborn remained out of reach. She was allowed only stolen glimpses of him watching from the apartment parking lot as Jin Shi walked him to kindergarten. Feng Ji poured her hopes into her two younger children, but tragedy struck again. Her son, Xiaoheng, seemed not to develop normally, most likely due to the medications she had been forced to take during pregnancy. He suffered from severe epilepsy and asthma, surviving only through constant medication. His seizures were violent, isolating him further from other children, bullied and excluded at school. He lived a life of torment. Feng Ji begged Jin Shi to perform a ritual to heal her son, but he coldly refused, claiming her own energy imbalance had cursed the child. Xiaoheng's condition only deteriorated, and in his fits, he sometimes lashed out, wielding a knife. Feng Ji endured unbearable anguish, caring for her sick child while carrying the crushing weight of emotional and physical abuse. To give her children some semblance of normal life, she began tutoring neighborhood kids at home. This way, Xiaoheng could have playmates and feel less isolated for a brief moment. Life seemed to improve, but the truth was only hidden, not erased. By 2008, everything began to unravel. Rumors spread of Jin Shi's unholy practices. Followers reported how he used bizarre excuses to make inappropriate physical contact. Slowly, Feng Ji's mother realized that the man she had revered as an embodiment of Guanyan was nothing more than a fraud hiding behind a monk's robes. She left the temple, along with many others, without their donations. Jin Shi's finances crumbled. Desperate, he pressured Feng Ji to lure her family back into the fold. After nearly 15 years of silence, she created a social media account and found her sister's profile, but instead of reconnecting with warmth, her first message begged them to return to the temple. Her family was initially overjoyed, until they realized her only concern was bringing them back under the Grand Master's spell. Suspicion grew. Had her disappearance all these years been because of him? A few days later, Feng Ji finally returned home with her two children. She refused to name their father, but her family quickly pieced together the truth, overcome with regret. Her mother urged her to sever ties with Jin Shi, but fear of his mystical threats kept them from confronting him directly. Instead, they maintained a cautious silence. Soon after, Feng Ji called her mother and sister, begging to move in with her children, but her father was undergoing kidney surgery, and the family feared provoking Jin Shi. Her mother hesitated and declined. That single refusal would become the breaking point. Meanwhile, Feng Ji, still harboring resentment toward Liang for taking her first child, called her during the reception. Furious, she shouted, "A disgraceful woman like you doesn't deserve to have a child with the Li surname." The argument escalated when they returned home later. The confrontation turned vicious. Feng Ji accused Liang of not being Jin Shi's true wife. In retaliation, Liang mocked her, revealing that Jin Shi had been with countless women, many of whom bore his children even before Feng Ji. "You don't even rank as mistress number 9. Liang sneered. Her world collapsed. She turned to Jin Shi for denial, for comfort, but drunk and irritated, he sneered, "Your skills in bed are terrible. That's why I never stay overnight." Here the words shattered her, and then, as if to drive the knife deeper, Liang exposed the ultimate betrayal. He has no powers. It was all a scam to swindle money for over a decade. Feng Ji had sacrificed her youth, her freedom, and her sanity in devotion to a man she believed divine. In an instant, she realized she had only ever been a toy in the hands of a fraud. The next day, still clinging to a sliver of hope, she and November 23, 2010. After weeks of trial and emotional testimony, the jury, 5 men and 2 women, returned with a unanimous decision. They ruled that FY was not guilty of intentional murder, but instead guilty of manslaughter. Recognizing that her actions stemmed from a state of severe mental illness, rather than deliberate malice, FY tried desperately to reach Jinner, hoping to hear the truth directly from him, but he ignored her calls all day. She tried phoning her mother and sister as well, yet none of them answered. On October 13th, she had planned a small barbecue outing with her tutoring students. She even went to buy charcoal and juice. But partway through the lesson, her condition worsened, unable to continue. She ended the class early and sent the children home back at her apartment. She kept calling and messaging Jinner, her mother, and her sister, but no one responded. Dark thoughts began to consume her. No one cares about me. No one loves me. What is the point of my existence? By 10 p.m., she was still dialing Jinner, afraid of disturbing her children's sleep. She took the sleeping pills her doctor had prescribed, crushed them in half, and mixed them into orange juice, giving it to her children after laying them down. She found herself thinking, will anyone care for my children? What am I to him, with all those other women? She lit incense, praying that the so-called Grand Master would reveal the truth. Still, every call was met with nothing but a busy signal. Her emotions unraveled. She began taking the pills herself, while dragging a charcoal grill into her room. Soon noticed black smoke rising from the apartment, and called the fire department. When firefighters arrived around midnight, they knocked on her door. Startled awake, FY told them she had only been burning incense, and apologized to firefighters. Uneasy, asked to check inside. She refused. Not wanting to wake her children, reluctantly, they left after they were gone. Swallowed 2 more pills and lay down with her children the next day. At 1 p.m., she awoke to find her children unresponsive. Instead of calling for medical help, she first tried phoning Jinner, asking him to perform a ritual to save them. He did not answer. She left a chilling voicemail. If anything happens to the children, you are the beneficiary of the insurance. Still, he never came. In desperation, she phoned Leng Yangan, telling her she had killed the children, believing it was a cruel joke. Leng replied, if that's true, then go ahead and call the police. Utterly hopeless, FY lit another charcoal basin and swallowed more pills. Yet fate spared her, though. She consumed a large number of pills and inhaled carbon monoxide. Her slowed breathing from the overdose meant she absorbed less poison than her children. By 3 p.m., she woke to find her children still lifeless. Only then did she call the police, reporting she had committed murder. When officers arrived, both children showed no signs of life. The trial. After months of investigation, the case was brought to trial in November 2010. The central question: had FY intended to kill her children? Her defense argued that she suffered from severe bipolar disorder, worsened after her second pregnancy. She had long tried to appear normal to avoid burdening others, but her illness persisted. The final shock, they claimed, had driven her to an extreme breakdown, an act of release, not deliberate malice. Parents of her students testified on her behalf. They described her as kind and selfless, often cooking meals for the children, escorting them home, waiving tuition fees, and treating everyone equally. They pleaded with the jury to show leniency, but the prosecution raised doubts. They pointed to her voicemail about the insurance beneficiary, suggesting she may have tried to manipulate Jinner with the charcoal incident, and, when that failed, carried out this act to shift blame. FY denied this fiercely, insisting her relationship with Jinner was purely romantic. With no thought of harming her children, she wept in court, saying she could not understand what karmic debt had caused her to lose both children. Yuna himself denied ever performing the ritual at the Guanyan temple. Instead, He admitted he had spent 118,000 Hong Kong dollars for 5 days with her at a luxury hotel. When questioned about Lang's taunt, "You're not even ranked as mistress number 9, possibly triggering FY's despair," he dodged the question. He claimed his diabetes impaired his sexual function, making such boasts impossible, and added that he couldn't recall details due to intoxication. After the trial, he vanished, offering neither comfort nor even a wreath. For the children's funeral aftermath at the Psychiatric Treatment Center, FY broke down whenever her children were mentioned, even expressing a wish to join them, yet, with the care of family and friends, she slowly found the will to live in detention. She wrote letters to District Councilor X Yawa, expressing deep remorse and admitting that dragging her children into her suffering was selfish. She dreamed of one day returning to Tuanmun to teach children again. Giving back to society, her letters moved the counselor, who shared them with the court. Finally, on November 23, 2010, after days of deliberation, a jury of 5 men and 2 women delivered their verdict. FY was not guilty of intentional murder, but guilty of manslaughter. Her actions judged the result of severe mental illness rather than calculated intent. The court initially set the maximum sentence for manslaughter at 10 years, but considering Feng's remorse, she was given 7 years in prison the following year. In September 2011, Feng's lawyer filed an appeal. The appellate judge ruled that the original sentence was too harsh and reduced it to 4 years. Her mother and family, filled with regret, visited her faithfully every week, rain or shine. Yet in the midst of her suffering, Gaynor vanished completely from her life. Today, Feng is free, and we can only hope her life finds peace. Gaynor, now 71 years old, never faced legal consequences, perhaps because many women bore his children. They either chose to support him more, like Feng's mother, feared his so-called spiritual powers. No media outlets have reported any further legal troubles involving him. He is said to be in poor health, living out his final years in bleak solitude. Looking back, it's heartbreaking to realize that this tragedy might have been avoided if Feng's family had helped her with something as simple as a plane ticket to study abroad, or accompanied her to the airport. She may never have fallen under Gaynor's control for over a decade. This case leaves us with a sobering lesson. Beware of fraudsters who disguise themselves as spiritual masters, and always protect yourself. Story 4. On the afternoon of July 10, 2017, golden sunlight poured over Singapore's bustling Bonnet Street, one of the city's busiest commercial hubs. The lively hum of traffic and chatter was suddenly pierced by a bone-chilling scream. A young man stumbled out of a cafe, clutching his blood-soaked abdomen behind him. A man in his 60s emerged, still holding the knife. Eyes cold with rage, the horrified crowd froze as the elderly man shouted, "Don't touch him. He deserves to die. I'm ready to go to jail." He lunged again, striking the weakening man as terrified onlookers screamed and scattered children cried. Women shrieked, and the victim collapsed on the pavement in agony, while witnesses frantically called the police. The attacker calmly pulled out his own phone, dialed the authorities, and reported his crime. Then, as if detached from reality, he simply stood there, watching his victim fade away. A faint smile even flickered across his face. Moments later, police sirens cut through the chaos, but it was too late. The young man bled to death before help could arrive. The shocking part: the murderer wasn't a madman. He was Tan Nam Sung, a 70-year-old shipping magnate, founder of a powerful company, and one of Singapore's most respected millionaires. And the victim, he wasn't a stranger. He was Spencer Tan, Tan's own son-in-law, CEO of the family company, and husband of Tan's eldest daughter, a tycoon. Stabbing his son-in-law in broad daylight sent shockwaves across Singapore. Why would a man of such stature commit such a brutal act? During interrogation, Tan revealed the truth. This wasn't about money or business. It was revenge for his daughter's suffering. Tan's story began humbly. He had arrived in Singapore as a poor immigrant child at 10. He worked the docks, and by 29, With sheer determination, he founded TNS Shipping, which grew into a maritime empire during Singapore's golden age. His ventures expanded into real estate and entertainment, earning him immense wealth and influence, but tragedy struck when his wife passed away, leaving him with 3 young daughters. Tan never remarried. Instead, he devoted himself entirely to raising them, pouring both his love and fortune into their future. His greatest hope was to pass his empire to his children, among them his eldest, Tan Ching Ching. Shone the brightest, brilliant in academics, and formidable in business. She climbed the company ladder from the bottom up, proving her worth at every step to Tan. She was not just a daughter, she was his legacy yet. As she approached her mid-30s, another concern haunted him. Her happiness in marriage. Ching Ching had focused so much on her career that she remained single well past 30. Tan often worried that while she excelled in business, she was missing her chance at love and family life. Tan often asked about his daughter's situation, even introducing her to wealthy families and successful young men, but Chung remained indifferent to all these meetings at first. Tan couldn't understand why. Then, during a company meeting, whispers among employees revealed the truth. Chung was secretly dating someone inside the shipping company out of both love and concern. Tan went straight to HR. He wanted to know who this man was, the one who had won his daughter's guarded heart. The name on the file stopped him cold. Spencer Tapon, a marketing employee working directly under Jung's supervision. Spencer was ordinary too. Ordinary for a girl raised in wealth. He was 5 years younger, had already gone through a failed marriage, and carried the responsibility of a child. From that union he still lived with his parents in Singapore's public housing. For Tan, the gap was enormous. Even middle-class families would hesitate to accept such a son-in-law, let alone a dynasty like the Tans. But Chung was unmoved to her. Spencer wasn't just a man, he was destiny. His mixed Chinese-Indian features, tall frame, and confident masculinity captivated her. The age gap only made him seem more energetic, more exciting, having never loved before. She fell too quickly for his practiced charm, the kind of charm only a man who had been married once could wield. Tan tried to stop her, but every word bounced off her shield of devotion. His daughter was lost in this love, helpless. The father, who had pampered her since childhood, could only watch. Finally, when Chung declared she would marry Spencer no matter what, Tan gave in. Better to bend than to break, to protect her happiness. He swallowed his misgivings. He bought the couple a villa, arranged an extravagant wedding, and even promoted Spencer within the company to outsiders. It looked like a fairy tale, the rich daughter marrying for love. Blessed by her generous father at first, the picture held. Spencer rose quickly, balancing hard work with his new privilege. Chung bore 3 children in quick succession, and gave up her career to care for them. Tan, though uneasy, found comfort in his daughter's seemingly perfect family life, but beneath the polished surface, cracks began to spread. Spencer, once the poor boy from public housing, had leaped into luxury now. Ambition grew inside him like a flame. He showered money on his parents and relatives, moving them directly into the villa without consulting Chung. It's a big house, he told her, and they can help with the children caught in the trap of filial duty and wifely silence. Chung could not object. Inside the company, Spencer climbed higher, placing relatives in strategic positions and quietly consolidating power. He became Tan's right-hand man, second only to the chairman himself. Tan's disapproval was clear, but Spencer ignored it, confident that one day the empire would be his. And in that confidence, he was not entirely wrong. Tan's health was failing, and Jung, once his promising heir, was buried in childcare with no sons. The father had little choice but to see his ambitious son-in-law as the inevitable success. Management philosophy had always been simple: focus on the big picture, ignore the small irritations. So, when Spencer's petty actions surfaced, Tan chose to turn a blind eye, believing it was the price of stability for both family and business. Yet, those daily concessions quietly wove together a tragedy. He never foresaw his eldest daughter, Tan Chunning, married late and endured a difficult pregnancy exhausted by severe symptoms. She gradually withdrew from the company. Spencer seized the chance, persuading her to devote herself to the children while he took over business matters. The network of contacts Tan had spent decades cultivating slowly slipped into Spencer's hands, though Tan occasionally urged his daughter to return. She confessed she only wished to dedicate herself to her family. Touched, Tan convinced himself that if his daughter trusted Spencer so deeply, then he too should treat his son-in-law as a son. When his health began to fail in 2015, he even considered passing the company to Spencer, but soon his world began to collapse. The first blow came from his second daughter, who returned to help with the family business only to be humiliated. Spencer revoked her access card and expelled her after she confronted his assistant, who had been spreading malicious rumors online that Chunning suffered from mental illness. Instead of defending family, Spencer chose his assistant. Worst followed. Spencer purged the company, firing loyal employees and replacing them with his own relatives. Tan's anger grew, but his deepest fears were confirmed when his eldest daughter finally broke down in tears. She confessed the truth. Her marriage had long been shattered. A friend had sent her a photo. Spencer, arm around another woman, celebrating a child's birthday. The caption read, "Happy family." The boy looked barely a year old. In despair, Chunning hired private investigators. What they uncovered devastated her. Spencer had built an entire second family in secret. The darkest moment came when she saw a child run to him, calling him Papa, while she had been faithfully waiting at home. When confronted, Spencer dropped to his knees, weeping and begging forgiveness. He swore he had been seduced, blamed the mistress, and even wrote a letter promising to cut ties. Chunning, torn by love and for the sake of their 3 children, gave him another chance. In 2015, when she became pregnant with a 4th child, she clung to the hope that this baby might mend their marriage. But betrayal runs deeper than love. Spencer continued with other mistresses when she finally demanded divorce. His mask dropped. Spencer revealed his true cruelty, not only vowing to strip her of every asset, but also determined to take custody of all the children, as if to erase her completely. Spencer knew his wife's breaking point, her pain, her fury, her helplessness, and he twisted it into a weapon. He deliberately provoked her, recording every tear, every outburst, every scream of a betrayed woman. Hidden devices in their bedroom captured it all one by one. He sent these clips to mental health experts, seeking evaluations that painted her as unstable. It was a calculated move. Destroy her reputation, prove her unfit as a mother, and strip her of custody. When Tan Namsung heard this from his daughters, dread gripped his chest. He ordered an immediate audit of the company. The results confirmed his worst suspicions. Spencer had built a shadow empire of shell companies, siphoning away millions. He secretly owned multiple properties, including the very house where he hid his second family. Each revelation was a dagger. The betrayal of his daughter, the theft of his fortune, the ambition to seize everything the Tan family had built. Looking at his daughter's exhausted face, Tan's fury roared like fire. The empire he had spent a lifetime building was being devoured by a man he once called son. The only escape now was divorce, but Spencer, ever the actor, refused. He wept in front of Tan, begging forgiveness, swearing he would change. The old man had seen enough. Those tears were poison. Spencer's mask slipped further during the divorce. He forged psychiatric reports to prove his wife was unfit, demanded custody of the children, and even claimed that while she played house, he had carried the weight of the company. Therefore he deserved half the assets. He ignored the truth. His wealth, his status, his power were gifts from the Tan family instead. His greed grew bottomless. The divorce became a war without end. Court hearings, endless filings, public humiliation. Chuning's body weakened under the stress. Her spirit withered. The company itself began to wobble under financial strain. To Tan Namsung, it was unbearable. His daughter was wasting away. His family name was in ruins, his empire collapsing, and so, a dark thought took root, the kind that comes to an old man when all hope has burned away. He convinced himself there was only one way to end this. Spencer had to die on July 10, 2017. Around 1:20 p.m., Spencer sat in a cafe on Tillich Air Street, sipping coffee as if nothing in the world was wrong by chance. Tan walked in, his heart pounded with rage. Images of his daughter's suffering, of the betrayal, of the stolen wealth, flashed before him without hesitation. He gripped a fruit knife, stood, and walked toward the man who had ruined everything. "Father, father, why are you here?" Spencer stammered in shock, trying to play his role once more. But Tan said nothing. He drove the blade into Spencer's abdomen once, twice, a third time bleeding. Spencer staggered out of the cafe, clutching his stomach, stumbling toward Bonnet Street. As panic-stricken onlookers screamed, Tan Namsen had no intention of stopping, knife in hand. He chased Spencer relentlessly until the young man finally collapsed in front of a restaurant, lying helpless on the ground. Spencer weakly cried out for help, begging his father-in-law to spare him, yet anyone who dared to step forward was quickly halted by Tan, who shouted in rage, "This man is my son-in-law, a bastard. Today I will kill him. Even if I go to prison, I'll accept it." Moments later, Spencer lost consciousness, his body sinking into a pool of blood. At that instant, Tan calmly set down the knife, as though a great weight had been lifted. He then pulled out his phone and called his eldest daughter, speaking with eerie composure. He said, "Chun Chung, father has killed that bastard." On the other end came her anguished cry, "Father, why did you do this?" But Tan, his voice steady, replied, "Father couldn't sleep. Father has done it. Don't cry. I'm not afraid of prison." After hanging up, he sat quietly at the scene until police arrived and arrested him. Spencer later died from massive blood loss. The brutal murder shocked the public at first. Many rushed to defend Spencer, painting him as a victim. But as investigators dug deeper, the ugly truth of the family's bloody drama began to surface slowly. Sympathy for Spencer crumbled. On August 20th, 2020, Tan Namsen stood trial initially. Charged with intentional murder, psychiatric evaluation revealed he had been suffering from severe depression at the time of the crime. The charge was reduced to manslaughter. On September 21st, 2020, Tan was sentenced to 8 years and 5 months in prison. While some saw him as a grieving father who had acted out of love, the law could not excuse such a violent act of vengeance. After Spencer's death, his mother demanded that Chen pay $500,000 in support. Chen refused, saying coldly, "If I hadn't married Spencer, he would never have lived such a life. His entire family worked at my father's company through me. He gained wealth and status he never could have achieved himself." To outsiders, Spencer had seemed lucky. Marriage had elevated him into privilege, but behind closed doors, his true character was gradually revealed as selfish, manipulative, and abusive. Chen, who had once believed she'd found true love, now realized how poorly she had judged in love. She had only looked at appearances, his looks, height, family, and education, while neglecting the most crucial thing, character, something that only reveals itself with time. Marriage is meant to last a lifetime. Rushing into it without truly knowing a partner's nature can lead to tragedy. Story 5. On October 9th, 2013, a crime shocked the entire nation of Kazakhstan that evening. The luxurious Boo restaurant, one of the capital city, Astana's most prestigious establishments, became the scene of a horrific murder located directly across from government headquarters. The restaurant was a favorite haunt of high-ranking officials and wealthy elites. That very afternoon, news spread that Russian President Vladimir Putin was meeting with Kazakhstan's president just a block away. There was even a possibility that both leaders might dine at Boo later that evening. In preparation, the management closed the restaurant to regular patrons, but instead of hosting world leaders, the restaurant became the site of tragedy. A death occurred in one of the VIP rooms. The shocking timing led some to speculate about political conspiracies. The victim was Sultanat Nenova, a 31-year-old woman from a powerful and well-connected family. Her father was a successful businessman with deep political ties, and she herself was the wife of Kuandik Bishimbayev, Kazakhstan's former Minister of Economy. When paramedics arrived around 8 p.m., they found a horrifying scene. Sultanat lay lifeless in a pool of blood. Her once beautiful face was swollen beyond recognition, her body covered in wounds. Despite frantic attempts at CPR, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy report revealed chilling details. Her nasal bones were shattered, her ears and cheeks bruised, and an oval-shaped mark on her neck showed signs of strangulation. The official cause of death was closed head trauma with intracranial bleeding. At twice the lethal threshold, her head had been struck at least 10 times. Even more disturbing, doctors discovered she had suffered a brain hemorrhage just a month earlier. Old and new injuries covered her body. Clear evidence of long-term abusal. Evidence pointed to one man, her husband, Kuandik Bishimbayev, who had been present at the restaurant that night at just 43 years old. Bishimbayev was the embodiment of privilege born into a powerful family. His father was a university president with close ties to Kazakhstan's former leader from birth. Every step of his path had been paved with gold. He graduated from elite institutions and rose swiftly into politics and business, living a life ordinary citizens could only dream of. At just 15, Bishimbayev secured admission to Kazakhstan National University after completing his undergraduate studies. He set his sights abroad, earning a master's degree at George Washington University in the United States. Armed with this credential, he returned home and launched a meteoric political career in 2007. At an unusually young age, he was appointed Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade. Within 2 years, he advanced again, this time as a presidential assistant. The following year, he was entrusted with the role of Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade. His rise peaked in May 2016 when he became Minister of National Economy, the youngest in Kazakhstan's history for a decade. His trajectory seemed unstoppable, a steady climb from bank director to the head of the nation's economy. But within just 7 months, it all collapsed. A $2 million bribery scandal cost him everything, earning a 10-year prison sentence. Yet, with powerful connections, he served only 18 months before walking free. His personal life mirrored this turbulence. Married 3 times, his last wife, Sultanat, would become central to his story. Educated in the UK and initially successful in banking, Sultanat abandoned finance after discovering a passion for astrology born into wealth. Free from financial worries, she reinvented herself as a sought-after consultant. Her striking beauty, refined elegance, and expertise quickly built her a strong reputation. Soon, her Instagram following surpassed 10,000, and her consultation calendar filled months in advance. But fame brought complications. Many male clients sought more than advice, turning consultations into excuses for flirtation. Uncomfortable with the attention, she imposed a strict rule: only women or couples could book private sessions. Then, in August 2022, Bishimbayev saw her photo online and became instantly captivated. Rumors spread that a prophecy had foretold she was destined for him. Whatever the truth, he was determined to meet her. Initially, Sultanat rejected his request for a consultation, but using a female acquaintance as an intermediary, he orchestrated a chance encounter under her friend's persuasion. Sultanat finally agreed. From that meeting, their relationship advanced rapidly. Despite being a father of 4 and a decade older, Bishimbayev carried himself with youthful confidence, with sharp looks, eloquence, and an imposing presence. He appeared far younger than his age, quickly winning her heart. In December 16, 2022, after a whirlwind courtship, the two held an Islamic wedding ceremony. Though never legally registered, they lived as husband and wife out of love. Sultanat abandoned her thriving career to embrace the role of homemaker. She could not have known that beneath her husband's polished exterior lay something far darker. Just 2 weeks after the wedding, his mask began to crack. The charm vanished, replaced by unsettling glimpses of his true character. One person noticed the shift almost immediately: her older brother, Ak, the The siblings shared a deep bond, forged years earlier when Ak had nearly lost her in a childhood accident, overprotective ever since. He was quick to sense when something was wrong. On December 31st, 2022, AXE accepted an invitation to a party at his brother-in-law's mansion, but what shocked him most that evening wasn't the luxury of the gathering, it was Sultanette herself. The sister he knew as cheerful and optimistic now seemed tense, anxious, and obsessed with every small detail. As if terrified of making a mistake at first, Atik assumed his sister's unease was nothing more than the nerves of a first-time hostess, eager to impress the family at the New Year's celebration. But when Bish, BV's cousin, suddenly arrived with a gift, the true source of her anxiety became clear-cut. Unprepared, Sultanette panicked according to custom, failing to offer a gift in return would be deeply improper. Thinking quickly, she rushed to her room, wrapped an expensive bottle of perfume, and presented it to her cousin-in-law. Her thoughtful gesture earned a radiant smile, and for a brief moment, the tension seemed to vanish. But then Bish BV saw it. His face darkened like a storm cloud. His furious voice cut through the festive air. "Why did you give away the gift I gave you? You never consider my feelings." The outburst stunned the room. Relatives and guests froze in disbelief. How could a respected former government official behave so childishly, as if quarreling over a toy? Bish's parents tried to ease the situation, gently insisting the perfume carried no special meaning, but their words only enraged him further, turning on his own parents. He hurled bitter accusations, claiming they were meddling in his private affairs. The party collapsed into silence. Guests made hurried excuses to leave, while the family pretended nothing had happened yet. The night grew darker still. After midnight, Bish erupted again, this time overturning the entire dining table. The carefully prepared New Year's celebration descended into Chowsat, watching with dismay, could hardly recognize his brother-in-law in his memories. Bish had always been a dignified, composed man. This new violent temperament unsettled him deeply. Still, when his sister assured him she could handle everything, ATC swallowed his fears and left, carrying home a heart heavy with worry for weeks afterward. He checked on her constantly. Each time Sultanette insisted she was fine, her calm reassurances gave him fragile comfort until March 20th, 2013. That day, his phone lit up with a message that made his blood run cold. A photo of his sister's face. Battered and bruised, her eyes were swollen, her features disfigured, but what broke him most was the emptiness in her gaze, once full of life, now hollow and soulless. Rushing to her mansion, ATC found only Bish BV, who coldly claimed he had no idea where his wife was. The response nearly provoked ATC into violence, but he restrained himself. His sister's safety mattered. He discovered that Sultanate had taken refuge at her mother-in-law's house when Achik pleaded with her to come home with him. She refused. "Marriage was my choice," she said. "When you're married, you must work to nurture it. Problems can be solved." Her words cut deep. ATC realized the truth his sister could not yet face. In domestic violence, there is never just one time. Every act of forgiveness only fuels the next act of brutality. By September 2013, his fears were confirmed. At another family gathering, he noticed fresh bruises on her arms. She dismissed them with a forced smile, claiming a massage therapist had pressed too hard. The excuse was clumsy, transparent. ATC's heart sank, but he held his tongue. Any confrontation with Bish might worsen her suffering. He was trapped in silence. Just as she was trapped in a cycle of abuse, the situation escalated further. On October 8th, Sultanat's closest friend, Ida, joined the couple for a concert that evening. Bish openly disrespected his wife, embracing and even kissing other women in front of her. Humiliated, Sultanate argued with him furiously. After the concert, Ida said goodbye to the couple as they left for a restaurant. That was the last time she saw her friend alive. The next day brought devastating news. Sultanate was dead when questioned by police. Bish BV's calmness was unnerving. He claimed they had argued during dinner. Sultanate wanted to go to her brother's house, but he persuaded her to stay. They drank, he said, and then both had drunk heavily, until intoxicated Bishop Beov later claimed that his wife must have slipped in the bathroom, striking her head on the toilet and suffering a fatal brain hemorrhage. He insisted that, when he regained consciousness, it was already too late, that her death was nothing more than a tragic accident, entirely unrelated to him. With arrogant confidence, Beov believed he had covered his tracks. The restaurant where the violence occurred belonged to his cousin, who ensured that all surveillance footage was erased in his pride. Beov convinced himself the police would never find evidence strong enough to charge him, and if matters became difficult, he was certain his wealth and extensive connections would allow him to bribe his way out of justice. But these assumptions were illusions. Modern forensic technology enabled investigators to restore the deleted footage even more damning. Police discovered 12 videos on Beov's own phone, gruesome recordings he had made himself, documenting the brutal torture of his wife. This evidence left no room for lies in court. Beov's facade crumbled, revealing not a grieving husband, but a savage murderer. The first recovered video, timestamped shortly after 1 a.m. on October 9th, showed Beov in a dimly lit hallway. A half-smoked cigarette smoldered between his fingers as his other hand gripped Sultanat's face, forcing her to look into his burning eyes. She was still fully dressed, but her features betrayed exhaustion and fear, her gaze desperately trying to avoid his. He would not allow it. Hours later, at 6:56 a.m., the cameras caught him again, emerging from VIP room 1 with a ferocious expression behind him. Stumbled Sultanat, clad only in a thin black coat, loosely draped over her body. Without warning, Beov turned on her like a wild beast. He knocked her to the ground, kicking relentlessly at her curled, defenseless frame. Still unsatisfied, he yanked her semi-conscious body upright, slammed her against the wall, and punched her face without mercy. Too weak to resist, she collapsed. But Beov's fury was unyielding. He dragged her by the hair into the bathroom, through the narrow gap of a keyhole camera. The footage caught a fleeting glimpse of Sultanat's final spark of hope. She had managed to slip inside first, locking the door with trembling hands, praying for a chance to call for help, but her hope was crushed in seconds. Beov kicked the door open and launched into a new wave of violence, this time even more brutal. For more than 70 minutes, the bathroom became a chamber of horrors. Though no surveillance cameras recorded the scene inside, Beov himself filmed it on his phone. As if boasting of his cruelty, his voice poured venom. His fists delivered endless punishment. The verbal abuse was as vicious as the blows, shredding her spirit as surely as her body. For 8 agonizing hours, Sultanat endured a living nightmare of physical and psychological torment. Every second dragged like eternity. By 9 a.m., she was barely conscious when Beov hauled her back into VIP room 1. It was the last time she was seen alive on camera, behind those closed doors. Her strength finally ebbed away. Instead of seeking help, Beov acted with chilling detachment. First, he ordered his cousin to erase all restaurant surveillance footage. Then, he instructed him to walk around with Sultanat's phone, to create the illusion that she was still alive and moving normally. At 2 p.m., with his wife unconscious and near death, Beov made a grotesque choice. Rather than call for medical aid, he contacted a psychic. When the psychic advised him to take Sultanat to a hospital, Beov erupted in rage, refusing outright. Pressured, the psychic offered hollow reassurance, telling him there was nothing to worry about, that Sultanat was merely sleeping. Comforted by this lie, Beov left the scene, strolling casually into the restaurant to meet a celebrity guest. There he dined for over an hour, laughing and drinking, as if nothing was amiss, as if his wife's fading life was of no consequence at all. By 5 p.m., when Beov finally returned, Sultanat still lay unconscious, showing no signs of consciousness. Bishop began to panic. Desperate, he sent his cousin to buy a concoction of carbonate ammonia mixed with aromatics, a crude stimulant designed to release ammonia gas and shock the lungs into breathing. But ammonia gas is deadly in the wrong dose, and even small amounts can be toxic, ignoring the risks. Bishop and his cousin sprinkled it under Sultanat's nose still. Her body lay motionless. Cold and unresponsive reality was slipping through his fingers, yet Bishop refused to accept it. Instead of calling for help, he turned back to his phone, frantically texting a psychic for false comfort when the reply came, assuring him everything was fine. He clung to the lie, like a drowning man to driftwood at 7:07 p.m., in yet another bizarre move. He even messaged a religious worker to ask if they were available. 10 long minutes passed before a response arrived. By then, Bishop's cousin, shaken and unable to bear the horror any longer, finally broke down and called emergency services. But it was too late. Sultanat's fragile life had already slipped away. The precious hours, wasted on superstition and hesitation, had cut off her final chance at survival in burying her. Bishop also sealed his own fate. The murder struck at a highly sensitive time, igniting outrage across Kazakhstan. Public fury was so intense that President Nazarbayev himself intervened, ordering the Interior Ministry to supervise every step of the investigation before the trial even began. A shocking development unfolded. Social media users collectively leaked the personal information of the jury. It was no accident. It was a message, a sword hanging over the jurors' heads. If anyone dared to bend the law, the wrath of the Kazakh people would fall upon them. On May 13, 2014, justice came at last. The Supreme Court of Kazakhstan sentenced Bishop to 24 years in prison for murder. His cousin did not escape punishment either, receiving 4 years for concealing the crime. During the investigation, police uncovered a letter Sultanat had written months earlier. In October, the trembling handwriting revealed her torment. False eyelashes on the dresser, lipstick stains on the marriage bed, used condoms in the trash, undeniable evidence of her husband's betrayal. Through those words, one could feel the unbearable pain of a woman who realized too late the truth about the man she had loved and protected. Even after enduring beatings, she clung to her marriage. When she finally found the courage to leave, fate betrayed her once more. Her chance to escape the claws of a monster masquerading as a husband came too late. Sultanat's death was not only a personal tragedy, it became a turning point for an entire nation. More than 120,000 citizens signed a petition demanding stronger protections for women. Their voices brought change. Soon after, Kazakhstan enacted the Sultanat Law, landmark legislation against domestic violence. Her name became a shield for countless women who would never have to endure what she had suffered. Her life ended in brutality, but her legacy endures in justice. Sultanat's tragedy awakened a society, proving that even in death, one woman's voice could ignite reform. And as the rain falls softly outside, thank you for joining me tonight at Crime Whisper. True crime reminds us not only of darkness, but of the lessons we must carry forward. If tonight's story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the rain guide you to sleep. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep its watch.